It became clear to me early this week that I would need to say something about the riots. The question is, what should I say? And I'm not sure that I know exactly what I should say. I have to confess to you that I'm not sure exactly that I've got a grasp of what's been happening. The reason I say that is that I'm very conscious that because of my lifestyle, because of my upbringing, because of my background, because of the opportunities that have been given to me, I'm not sure that I can understand what has made people react as they have. It's not been my experience, and therefore how can I understand it or comment on it? It would be very easy to be critical and to condemn what's happened, as many people have, and to say that such action is completely unacceptable. And I suppose there's part of me that wants to say all that's gone on is completely unacceptable. It's not how we live in community. It's not how we live as society. And yet, somehow, within all of that, I've still got this sort of gut feeling that actually the things that have gone wrong in our communities are partly our responsibilities. It seems to me that somehow, within what's gone on, our communities have been let down. And we must bear some of that responsibility. I've been trying to weigh up this sort of whole sense of the power of the mob, of peer pressure, of going with the flow, that obviously has happened for some people, and some people have been taken along with that, and the most unusual people have been caught up in it. I'm very conscious that alongside that there's all the sense of sort of the criminal opportunities that have been made available, and people have taken those opportunities. I did wonder about asking right at the beginning whether anyone had got a new plasma screen this week, but that seemed a little bit close to the bone. And then also alongside that, there's all those people who actually may or may not have been a part of the riots, who actually feel quite dejected, separated, as if they're not quite sure where they find themselves within the community around about us. I wonder, these are sort of all thoughts, and you'll realise when I get to the end of the sermon that I've not told you anything, but just a lot of thoughts really. I also wonder how much we have let materialism and greed rule our society. It seems to me, wherever we turn, we are portraying a certain image. We're expecting people to achieve a certain image with wearing the right clothes, with doing the right things. There's that whole sense of all that advertising does for us. This is what you need to eat and drink. This is how you will make your hair absolutely glowing and flowing and light as a feather, and doing all those things that it's meant to do as you swish it round. This is the car that you really need to drive. And the expectations that we make on people. And sometimes it seems to me that they are unrealistic expectations. And we have promoted greed. We've done nothing about injustice and inequality. And we've let all of those things creep into our society. And then we wonder why people are not content. I wonder within it all whether somehow we, and I'm not talking about you and me as individuals, and I'm not particularly talking about us here as a church, but we as a community are actually letting ourselves down and letting each other down and failing one another. I'll say some other things as we go along, because it seems to me there are other things to be said. But we have this sort of setting today of the disturbances, the riots that have And then we have these two readings set for this Sunday. And it seems to me that they say something to us. Because alongside the riots, I suggest we have this whole area of rejection. Romans, as Paul writes, he starts off, does God reject his people? Is God rejecting the people of God? Because of the way they act, because of the way they are. And he says, certainly not. I also am a Jew. And God's not been rejecting me. But there's that sense of rejection within that setting. And Paul is asking the question, has God pushed us aside? And then we have this reading from Matthew about the Canaanite woman. And it seems to me that she certainly begins to approach Jesus with a sense of fear and trepidation. She's an outcast as far as the Jewish people are concerned. She's a mere Canaanite. She's been rejected and pushed to one side. In a sense, she's been let down by the Jewish faith. And she's struggling to find her place in society. I wonder how often we act like the disciples. And we send people away because they're making too much noise. They're not doing what we want them to do, and therefore they can have no part in what we're doing. And we let them down. All the lonely people, where do they come from? All the lonely people, where do they belong? Is it jumping ahead really? But surely they belong here. And yet somehow we seem to set up this sense of rejection. Of course, part of it is that very often such people are a drain on our resources. It's hard work looking after people who are high maintenance. Because sometimes it seems that almost whatever you do for them, I know things that come out right, that no matter what you do for them, it's never enough. I don't know whether I've mentioned Trevor before here, but Trevor was someone who used to call on me quite regularly in Rotherham. He was addicted to gambling, and he would often turn up on a Saturday evening because he'd been paid on Friday, lost all his money on the horses on Saturday, and had absolutely nothing until the following Friday when he'd be paid again. I often wonder whether, if only I had a bit more time, I could have helped him, really helped him to get things sorted. But it was always like putting a plaster on. It was never actually healing the wound. And he felt rejected and pushed aside and lost within the society in which he found himself. What does our society offer? Individualism, greed, the need to strive for success. The other thing that I've been particularly struggling with is this sort of two ends of the spectrum, is how I've come to look at it. We have on this one hand these disturbances, the riots, and of course thousands, possibly millions of pounds of damage. And that's terrible. But on the other end, we've been hearing about the money markets, and they've been talking about trillions of pounds being knocked off them, as if they're playing with monopoly money, and as if, it doesn't really matter. It'll eventually come round and they'll recover. I just can't get my head around that. The sort of diversity of the two ends of that spectrum. And it seems to me I'm almost living in an unreal world where those things are being spoken about. And then, in amongst all of that, of course, the markets are acting like they are, because we're talking about a country's debt. How can so many countries be in debt to so many other countries who are in debt to so many other countries? I'm sure there's someone who does the finances that will come and explain this clearly to me in one sentence. But it seems to me that we're living in an unreal world. We've got expectations which are just not achievable. And when I think of some of those things, I too actually feel rejected. I'm really not quite sure if I'm making sense this morning, but there are riots. There's this sense of rejection, which seems to me to be there. But then it seems to me that at the heart of the gospel, we have reconciliation. We have hope. The Canaanite woman feels completely rejected. But then she meets with Jesus and she finds reconciliation. She finds that she's made to feel special, that she's loved, that she's understood, that she's wanted, that her child is healed, that actually things are turned around because she is loved and understood. And Paul tells us that that's exactly what God does. He doesn't reject his people. Oh, sometimes they turn against him. But actually he continues to bless. He doesn't choose who he's going to bless and who he's going to curse. Everyone is accepted. Everyone is a part of that reconciliation that God offers. Everyone is included within the kingdom of God. And surely that's something that we need to be striving towards. That's what we need to be working towards. We need to get that reconciliation, that sense of sharing God's love, that offering of God's hope, that inclusion of people at the top of our list. On the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus begins to talk. It's always very difficult to say, blessed are the peacemakers, because I always hear Monty Python say, blessed are the cheesemakers. But that makes it even better, doesn't it? Because whatever the mockery is there, actually we know it's the reality. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst. Blessed are you who seek justice. Blessed are you who share God's love. Blessed are you who have a concern for God's kingdom. There's that whole sense of God's rich blessing on his people. And we need to seek that blessing. And we need to share that reconciliation. We need to strive for that justice and peace which God is offering richly to us. There are riots. There's a sense of rejection. If only we can learn reconciliation. If only we can really learn to love one another. There's an old sort of saying that someone has suggested that if we had 5 minutes left to say all that we wanted to say, we'd all, it used to say, we'd all be out on the phone, we'd all be getting our mobile phones out now, ringing people or texting them to say how much we love them. The question is, why would we wait until the last 5 minutes? We can do it now. We can let people now know how much they're loved and accepted and included. Riots, rejection, and reconciliation. What's the part that we have to play within it? What's the part that we have for all those lonely people? What's the part that we have for those who are feeling rejected and lost? What's our part in the kingdom of